Hi there, I'm Maria,
And I'm Jose.
and together we're the founders of TK Collective, and we are taking this email and putting it into a short
Video.
video. I don't know how short it will actually be, but it is a recap for those of you that don't love to read. We are, through the month of August, telling our story of building TK Collective from how it started to where it's going and a bunch of steps in between. This is a story that we're calling Never Easy, Always Good. And so we're going to jump right in. But before we do, I wanted to just tell you that this has been a really long journey. We've had a lot of highs and lows over the last couple of years. And although we've seen God's hand very clearly, it doesn't change the fact that it's hard to tell. It's a hard story to tell for us, mostly because we feel like we've not only failed ourselves in many ways, but we've also failed our supporters. We feel like we've been failing forward for pretty much since we started. And somehow yet we still feel like this is what we're supposed to be doing, and that maybe...
Yeah, there's always been a lesson every time that we have failed forward. So that's the positive aspect of that.
That failing forward is quite possibly the point. That practice makes perfect, and that as we have failed forward, we just get the opportunity to see God and to glorify God. So with that, we've learned that nothing worth building is ever easy, but God is always good. And so TK Collective has been a very long-standing dream, one that was born out of a belief that God has gifted every single person with gifts, talents, and skills that when utilized have the power to not only fill our own lives with meaning and purpose, but they have the power to do good in the world for both people and God. And so that's what we're doing. We're using TK Collective to create businesses born out of people's creative talents and skills as a means of holistic transformation in some of the I don't know if the
Far off
poorest
places.
some of the most disenfranchised places in the world, let's say that. This has been a dream so long that I think 15 years ago we started it under another name.
Hut to Home.
And Hut to Home had a very similar mission, but we realized in that season of our life very quickly that we just didn't have the capacity to get it off the ground. And so we shelved it until 2018 when we had just moved back to Texas, and we had been doing some very intentional prayer walking and talking with God about what was next. And although we were praying for different areas of our life, he actually spoke to this one and just told us to get started, that no one who builds something, a nonprofit, a ministry, a business, really knows what they're doing. And so we just get started, and that's what we did. By the fall, we had booked a vision trip to Guatemala, and upon our return, we founded Gonzalez Lifestyle LLC, doing business as TK Collective, with $500 of artisan goods that we had brought back from Guatemala, and a plan to move long-term to Guatemala. And so I guess from there, that was January of 2019 when we founded TK Collective. And we spent the next few months trying to figure out how to run a business because we had no idea what we were doing. And then by August, we had signed on with Mission Quest as missionaries, and a long-term plan. This was kind of the fulfillment of our long-term plan to move our family to Guatemala to build the Talitha Kum School of Marketplace Leadership. That's a mouthful, I know. It was going to be a gospel-centered vocational training program for high-capacity young women from indigenous communities. And we were planning to empower and equip them to utilize their God-given gifts to impact their families, their communities, and ultimately their country, and then on to the ends of
beyond.
And beyond.
We had a well-crafted plan. We had it packaged really nicely, and we could see it. we had dates, we had everything planned out. Well, our plans are not God's plans. So about 3 weeks into signing up with Mission Quest, I was terminated unexpectedly from my long-term employment. We had planned it to be a pretty cool thing where I'd be working, we'd be fundraising, and it was going to be perfect, and we would have about a year or so to be able to collect finances and get all of our donors, and it was really nice, very, very, very nice and crafted. We thought so, at least. That's not really what happened after I was terminated. We just started to experience a whole lot of challenges, and then COVID was around the corner, and it was just one thing after the other.
Okay, but you're going into another story.
Yeah, nevertheless, though, we were able to see God's hand throughout every single time that we didn't know what we were going to do, and God was there coming through.
Jose actually was unemployed for it. In total, it turned out to be a year and a half. But we didn't have any income coming in for about 3.5 months, and those are some really low times. But God, we saw His hand. He was so good, and the stories of miraculous finances gave us the courage to begin fundraising, and so
that's what we did.
I mean,
we started fundraising.
We had some early success in fundraising, and that again gave us the confidence to take the next steps. And so we put our house on the market, and within a month we had it under contract, and
had an estate sale.
COVID was happening, it just kind of taken off, and we were still moving forward with our plan because we saw God's hand very clearly. We each got one tote and one suitcase to pack our belongings into, and everything else we sold in an estate sale. And once all of our belongings were gone and we were packed up, we purchased our airline tickets to depart August 5th for Guatemala. And then we were going to spend the time between the beginning of July and the time of our departure on a 4-week-long kind of cross-country fundraising / visiting family road trip. And that's
So
what we did.
Started doing that, yeah.
And emotions were high. I think back to this time, it seems very difficult to quantify how we felt. On one hand, we were so excited because this was a dream in the making and we were living it, and it was exciting and it was fun. And then we had all these other emotions of sadness.
Yeah, on the other hand, when you see your whole life packed into one tote and one suitcase, that's kind of scary.
Yeah. We were asking a lot of our kids, and so there was guilt about the sacrifices we were asking them to make. There was sadness over the things that we would miss while we were gone. There was so many emotions, and they were all competing, but it was like these emotions coupled with our drive out in West Texas led to a lot of really great conversations, and it spurred on a post that I found recently actually on my Instagram feed, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it. It says, location, middle of nowhere, Texas, and our subsequent thoughts. How might it feel to make decisions based on calling and purpose rather than what's comfortable, attainable, and risk-free? That's a quote by Jess Connolly. We read these words as we're cruising through the desolate West Texas plains, where tumbleweeds, dust devils, and long stretches of nothing make up the backdrop for this boring landscape. It got us thinking about a life lived within the lines, and one surrendered to fear rather than passion and purpose. There is a person for every purpose. Don't let your fears or your desire for the safe and secure hold you back from living into your more. Little did we know at the time of this writing that our more was about to crumble, that we would never actually get on that plane headed for Guatemala, and that by the time we reached California, we would, and so we're going to stop because you got to come back next week. And this video is already way too long. So, next week,
we'll see y'all.
We will continue.
Peace.